Hey, welcome into the podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Robbie, the Unhinged Father. Hope everyone's having a fantastic week so far. As many of you may noticed, I've been MIA for the last 2 weeks. There's been a lot of shit going on within my family. A couple of things have come up, some new challenges, a couple of pivots that we're having to take, and it's just been a turbulent time, and I really haven't had the time to get on here and focus on the podcast or on any of the social media sites or anything like that. My creative outlet has been kind of tapered off the last couple of weeks. Boys have been going through some sleep regressions on top of everything else that our family is going through. And so my sleep has just been abysmal for the last, 2, 3, 4 weeks since I've had kids. But yeah, I'm glad to be here with you today. We are going to be making a slight change. I'm no longer going to be doing 2 episodes a week. I think that was, pie in the sky, wishful thinking that I had, and we're going to be sticking with 1 episode per week. I'm going to be releasing it either on Wednesday or Thursday, TBD. Might switch it up with both days and kind of see which one hits better with the audience. And also ask if you have a preference on day. But we all know that on Friday, y'all don't want to listen to me bitch and moan about whatever I've got on my mind that day. You want to go home, have a beer, relax, take a load off, maybe listen to a comedy podcast and not necessarily listen to this shit. This episode, I wanted to take some time to speak about something that's been really at the forefront of all of these different challenges that my family have been going through, and something that I really put on a pedestal within my life. One of the virtues that I really hold on to and don't feel like I've been living up to it as of late. And that virtue is courage. And kind of on the coattails of this episode being about courage, I've got a change that I'm going to be, well, not a change, just something new that I'm going to be introducing in conjunction with the podcast. I've been trying to think about different ways that I can expand the audience and interact with the audience, and also really trying to think about what are things that I wish that I had. What are things that I wish I can get out of this, and what can I offer to everyone else out there that's actually listening to the podcast as well? I'll go ahead and make that announcement at the end of the podcast because I want to make sure you motherfuckers actually listen to the podcast before we get to it. No peeking. Anyways, this theme of courage has been something that's really been ringing in my head, and it probably has something to do with the fact that the last book that I finished was Ryan Holiday's Courage is Calling, which is all about courage. But yeah, I just think that courage is something that is severely lacking in today's culture, today's society. And I'm not just speaking about all of the other shitheads out there. I'm also talking about myself, my family. I have lacked courage. I've been, dare I say, a coward in certain aspects of my life. And this podcast is something that's, as I've held off on releasing podcasts the last 2 weeks and I've been stewing over all of these different things that have come to mind, I've been hesitant. I've sat down at the computer maybe a handful of times and hit the record button and then went back and fucking deleted it because I was scared of what I was releasing. Like, is this any good? Is what I have to say something that people want to listen to? Do I bring any value to anyone, right? I know I've got a couple of my friends out there that you're probably listening to this and you're like, oh, it's great. But that's just because you guys are my friends, or at least that's how I think of it in my mind. And it's hard for me to put so much effort into something and fail at it. And I'm not saying that I'm failing. I'm not saying the podcast is going anywhere, but it's just something that I've been struggling with. And I think it's also been shaping the way that I've been creating this podcast, because I've been trying to figure out different ways to have the podcast grow. What do I need to do? Do I need to do some gimmicky fucking, giveaway? Do I need to be doing these product reviews? Do I need to make it funnier? Like, I know I'm already funny as shit, but what do I need to incorporate into the podcast to make it a success? And that in and of itself to me is cowardice, because I should be doing what I think is good for the podcast. And I want to take into consideration whatever you guys say. I want your interaction. I want this to be a community, a place where people can interact. And well, I'll touch on that a little bit later as well. But it's not to say that this is just what I want. I don't want to be unfaithful to my ideals, to my personality, to who I am, just for the sake of trying to get 1 or 2 more people to listen to the podcast. If this podcast is meant to have more viewers, more subscribers, then that's just something that will happen eventually by me being me. Now let's go ahead and jump off of me being a coward and how I should revoke my title to being Mr. Gryffindor, because I'm not courageous. I think where a lot of this stems from is when I'm looking at a lot of these stories or different things on social media or different podcasts, all of the different inputs that I'm getting, all the information that's coming through. And in my mind, I'm just like, how the fuck did we get here? How the fuck did we let this happen? How is it so crazy out there? And how are there not a million other people just like me saying like, no, that's dumb. That's wrong. Shut the fuck up. Don't do that. We let the most insane people have these giant platforms and people are too afraid to tell them like, no, dude, you're fucking nuts. Like, have some goddamn common sense. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Fuck you. We just let shit go. We're afraid of cancellation. We're afraid of going against the grain. And we've seen that there are real world consequences. As I get older and I have kids and a family, like the stakes are so much higher. But because the stakes are so much higher, that's a reason why we can't let our courage fail us. We can't be cowards. We have to be willing to sit there and say, no, fuck you. That's dumb. You're an idiot. And I'm just going to make that vow right here that I'm going to be that person that if we come across a certain subject or if I disagree with something, you know, I'm always open to hearing discourse on it. I guess what I'm really getting at is the fear of even having that discourse. If you're to even speak your mind, if you're, you know, if you say something that goes countercultural, especially in this culture, that you're going to get canceled, you're going to get fired. It's going to have a negative impact on you, your family, your kids, all of that stuff. That fear is real. That fear is there. But that's why we've gotten where we're at right now. Not to say that the world is completely fucked, but there's some pretty fucking stupid stuff going on right now. And we need people to stand up to say, nah, enough is enough. Stop being so dumb. So on this podcast, I'm going to be sticking to what I feel needs to be out there. I'm going to stop trying to do all these, you know, cutesy bug swatter fly reviews and shit like that. Like I may like that. I may mention it, but to try and make an entire episode about it, like I'm not Joe Rogan. I'm not fucking Tim Ferriss. I'm not a comedian. I'm just a dude in his office looking into a camera, asking you guys to listen to the podcast. And I think a lot of this actually stemmed from a conversation that I was having with my counselor. And we were talking more so about, you know, courage was within what we were talking about. That was in the conversation. But we specifically started talking about masculinity in today's society. And obviously I'm a relatively masculine man as I sit here and, you know, flex my pecs and throw my shoulders back a little bit for the camera. But masculinity, I feel like sometimes in this world has a very negative connotation. You always hear toxic masculinity or like, that's so toxically masculine. And I think that word is horseshit. Do I think that there are traits of masculinity that can be toxic? Like 100%. You know, it's really the intensity of that trait that makes it toxic or not toxic. And I feel like there's been like a real polarity because of this, I don't want to say attack on masculinity, like men still get to do a bunch of shit. And there are a lot of men who are privileged out there. And, you know, I would never sit here and say, woe is me for being a man. I've had a good life and I've had a lot of privilege within my own life, but it's more so for the generations that are coming behind us. Like we can't fuck this up for them. What I've seen in society is you've got like these two archetypes of masculinity now. You've got, right, these, what is his name, Andrew Tate or Nathan Tate? I don't know. I don't follow him. The Tate guy. And then you've got guys like Andy Elliott. And there's a bunch of other like super douchey guys who have just really been playing upon this like alpha male stereotype. They're taking like the worst aspects, the aspects of masculinity that can be seen as toxic. They've just been amplifying it to 11. And what they're really doing is they're preying upon those kids, those men who feel disenfranchised, who don't feel like they have a voice anymore, right? They've been like neutered's kind of like a strong word for it, but right, they've been disenfranchised, they've been patronized, and they're put within this level where they feel like a lot of their masculine traits are seen as negative. And so they're pushing back and they see these guys like Andy Elliott who are like, well, look at me, I got fucking lots of money and bitches, and like, if you're not like me, super ripped and, you know, have your tape on your nose to make sure you don't snore, you're just a fucking loser. And they prey upon them and they make a ton of money off of it. I mean, it's not a bad idea, right? If I was a little bit more jacked, a little bit more of a dickhead, I might be all for it. But those guys just piss the shit out of me. And then you have the complete opposite side where you have the dudes, fucking painting their nails or crying because they saw a butterfly fly on TikTok and then they start doing some dance. And I'm not saying any of that stuff is inherently wrong. Yeah, I mean, they've just completely shunned that masculine side and they're taking on traits more so of like femininity and like really holding on to that. And all I'm saying, not that you can't be feminine, not that you can't be masculine, but where the fuck is that person who's in the middle, the healthy mix of both of them? Because that's really what we all are, right? Masculine and feminine traits are in every single person. It doesn't matter if you're the manliest dude out there, you're going to have feminine traits about you as well, or quote unquote stereotypical feminine traits. And I guess where I'm trying to go with all of this is that's where I live. I live in the middle, right? I'm the guy who can go out, drink with the guys, who when I see people like Andy Elliott treating other people unfairly, unjustly, I'm like, let's take that dude in the back and teach him a lesson. But I'm also the guy who can sit down with my kids, watch an episode of Bluey and start bawling because it hits some sort of emotional chord with me, makes me reminisce about the past. I'm the one who could sit down and watch How to Lose a Guy in 10 days. I'll go and have, get a manicure, get a pedicure. Where are those people in our society now? I think a lot of times they're quiet. And that's where me and my counselor were going with this. He said he's got a lot of younger men who really struggle and don't have male mentorship in their lives anymore. They don't have a strong man who lives in both the feminine and the masculine, someone who embodies being a healthy blend of the two of them. They have either or right now. And they're not getting that mentorship. It's causing a lot of anxiety, a lot of issues within this. And so as we continue down the road with this podcast, it's not a male or masculine mentorship program. That's not what I want this to be. I want this to be from the perspective of someone who owns both the masculine and the feminine side of himself, someone who's not afraid to tell the truth, speak common sense, and someone who can kind of interact with pretty much everyone, someone who's open to discourse, someone who's open to having conversation, someone who's open to arguments. And that's what I am. That's me. In this world where everything is so polarizing, right? Just some normal person who lives in the gray zone, he's the unhinged father. He's the unhinged person because he doesn't subscribe to what society is telling him. I think it's beneficial for both men and for women to have this perspective, to own both sides of themselves. And I think you're getting a lot of the opposite almost on the female side. Whenever you watch stuff about women or about like women's empowerment, they're really a lot of times holding on to like this masculine aspect as like the ideal. And to me, I think that that's wrong too. Women can have that, right? You can be a quote unquote boss lady or any of that other stuff, but don't fucking shun the other aspects of yourself, the feminine qualities that are there. And who knows, maybe I'm going to get canceled because I'm calling, some of like the grace and beauty and all of those other things, the caringness, like all of those are feminine traits. And I'm labeling those as feminine, even though they live within both masculine and feminine. But that doesn't mean that you can't own both of them. Like I've already said, they both live within all of us. Maybe it's because women have been disenfranchised in the past and they saw that the only way for them to take power, to get power, quote unquote, get power, work their way up, was to be more masculine, to be more of a dick, to be a boss lady. And I don't think that has to be the case. It's going to take a lot of people to have these conversations and to really, like I said, my mind's going all over the place. ADHD is really kicking in right now. And there's so many different paths that I want to go. And it's difficult when I'm doing it by myself, sitting here in the office, talking to myself, because there's no one to bounce ideas off of. It's literally just me going down all of these different paths and going in so many different directions. But ultimately, I think what I'm hoping for is to create something that's helpful to me, to helpful to other people, a place where we can all come, talk, bounce these ideas off of each other, where it's not just me talking to myself, and where there can be true interaction and true growth. And even if one person benefits from this, then fucking nay, it was worth it. There's a reason. That's the reason why I'm doing this podcast, for myself and for other people as well. But I think that's a good spot to taper off this episode. This is my first one back in a couple of weeks, and like I said, it's kind of been a mind fuck. I'm hoping that getting over this episode, since we've been going through all these challenges, will kind of bolster my confidence and just show me that I can continue to do this. And I'm hoping that the next episodes won't be as fucking scatterbrained and all over the place. I really just didn't know how to jump back into it. So I appreciate the patience, but that'll do it for this episode. Thank you to everyone for listening, for giving a shit, and for not canceling me as of yet. And as I teased at the beginning of the episode, I did have something that I wanted to kind of announce here. It's nothing crazy, nothing big, but you've heard me speak a couple of times about how I want community, how I want to interact with other people, and how I am hoping that we can build something or I can help build something to where we can be true support for other people. Starting next week, I'm going to be putting out there on social media, the website, through this as well, just like a Teams meeting. I'm going Teams because I've got Microsoft Office and I feel like everyone uses Teams, but just once a week, an open Teams meeting to anyone who wants to come in and have a chat with me or with other people within the community. I don't care if you're a dad, a brother, a sister, a mom, whoever you are, wherever you fall on the political spectrum or the gender spectrum or anything. I don't give a shit. If you want to come in and have a chat, feel free. In all honesty, I really anticipate it just being me sitting there for fucking 15 minutes before I give up and turn off the Microsoft Teams thing. But I'm going to do it every week. I'm going to open it up. I'll sit there for 15 minutes that I'll have blocked out. If no one shows up, I'll cut it. But if people show up, we can have a conversation, and I'll probably block out a time between 30, 40, 50 minutes. With the amount of viewers that I have right now, it's really not going to be a shit ton of people, but who knows? Maybe it grows. Maybe we get new people. Maybe it's not just all of my friends, or even if it is friends that don't know each other, friends that are at different stages of their lives, but maybe are struggling with the same thing. So I'm going to open it up. I'm trying to be better about connecting with people and being more open. And this is kind of that step of me extending out that olive branch to just, to the universe, to no one in particular. So keep an eye out. I'll send out the link. Who knows if this is going to work? Could be just some stupid gimmick that I throw out there, but I'm going to be consistent with it. If you are interested in joining that and you have a preference on date and time, like day of the week and the time of the day, I'm definitely open to hearing about that. But keep an eye out. I appreciate all of you listening. As always, give a listen on Spotify or give me a follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasting needs. If there's anyone that you feel, would enjoy this message, or if you feel like there's anyone who would enjoy this content, please share it with them. It's pretty easy. There's a little share button. Pop it over in a text message or an email. But other than that, I really do appreciate each and every one of you being here. Thank you for sticking with me on this neurodivergent ride I just took you through. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of the week, a great weekend. And as always, be good, try hard, do your best.